Ryan tunes. Sound engineers, producers, those involved in mixing, mastering music will refer to a word called frequencies. And all frequencies refers to is every note, every sound really emits waves, and that wave will have a particular frequency. They're measured in music anyway. There's charts between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz. So in a way, when you play a note, it's like it's got its own DNA. It has a number to it, somewhere within that 20 to 20,000 range. This is a real cool chart. It shows a few common music-related items and frequencies. 262 hertz is middle C, and right in the middle of an area that I'll discuss a little bit later on. So while the ear might hear to 19,000 hertz, our musical comfort area is probably in the 60 to 800 area. I think most music lives somewhere around there. So how does this work in practice, and what's this EQ all about? When I play a note, this, as we know from the chart, this is low E on a guitar. The frequency is 82. Its DNA is 82. However, when I move this up to play a G chord, or the low G note will be 98. It's not as it was before on the E because it's got a different note, different frequency. So the frequency here now is 98. And that last chart talked about the very highest string on a guitar, 1047 hertz. That's as high as a guitar will go. And you're not going to play that, even probably if you've got a cutaway. It's just pretty high. And it's not the most pleasant sound, but that's over 1,000 hertz right there. Why is this all important? The answer is mud. Have you ever heard a song that you like the song, but there's something about it, there's instruments clashing or competing? Well, that's exactly what's going on. They're competing. They're playing within the same frequency range, and they're competing. So what you get is what we call mud. Here's another chart. Rather than show the highest note on these instruments like I did in the last chart, here's where a few of the instruments that I play are commonly played. They're sweet spots. It's where you or I might play them. I chose 3 for this illustration. Upright bass, and that's in blue. Acoustic guitar in red. Mandolin in green. Each one, as you can see by the chart, occupies a section within the chart. Bass goes from 41 to 123. Guitar 82 to 493. Mandolin from 196 to 880. So the mud is in there, in the overlap areas. Take bass and guitar. Both occupy 82 to 123. So if I happen to be playing both on those particular notes at the same time, there's going to be a little confusion or competition, whatever you want to call it. It isn't as pleasant as a clean sound. So when you have a bass, let's say in a song, plus maybe 3 instruments, chances are pretty good that there's going to be some frequencies where they fight or duplicate. And famously, the area from 200 to 500 hertz, shown here in bold, is an area where a lot of instruments often are competing in acoustic music. So what to do? This is the world of EQ. This is where equalization comes in. Obviously, for a song, you can just decide to play it up the neck. But again, you're going to be competing with other instruments up there, most likely. So the standard way to do it is to use equalization, and that is, let's say you've got 2 instruments. One's maybe more of a lead than the other one. You will probably cut where the common frequency is, or part of it, with the support instrument and let the other one sort of occupy that space. Really, it's just giving each instrument its own lane. And that's where the clarity comes in when you hear a great record or something like that from a big studio. You notice how clean and singular each instrument is within the mix. A lot of that's the EQ. Now, one note I will mention on this area is there's not a lot of musicians, I don't think, that use EQ when they're tracking. I do. As a former creator, champion creator of mud, I really got into this area and decided I've got to do it on the tracking. Most people just leave it for later, post-production. The sound engineer that goes through the computer, you can put your EQ in and it works pretty good. But it's not as natural of a sound as when I do it going in. And being an analog guy, I've got a machine that does that for me. The other thing to mention about that is that normally I cut rather than boost. There's two options. You can boost a frequency or you can cut it. I usually cut, and I usually do it on the instruments that's not of lesser importance. That's how I do it. And in closing, a couple of caveats. There's some instruments that really have their own unique voicing or tone. Banjo, in my world, EQ isn't really usually at the top of the list on a banjo. Its own sound is so unique. Sometimes with dobro too, you can get that very unique sound away from the other instruments. So even though they might be playing a common frequency with, say, a guitar or some other instrument, maybe a mandolin, they usually stand out on their own without any processing. And point number two, caveat number two, just like with the transient designer or the transients, I try not to overdo it. It's an easy area to get crazy, and then you're handing over to the producer tracks that are too thin or not sounding right. And when he does the total mix, it's basically defeating the whole purpose, what you were trying to do in the first place. So small little cuts. I don't boost an awful lot. Little cuts and not much. Just a little bit can take instrument B down and let instrument A kind of take the lane. So that's it for EQ and frequencies. Thanks for watching. See you next time.